Talk about your mom and dad.
Mom and Dad, Ray and Jan, and they was born 47 years ago, and I've got a younger brother. We've been in the Falconer, Jamestown area our whole life. Their stories are that I think I was about 3 weeks old when I went to my first softball tournament with my dad, and which would be probably Olean softball tournament. I was born in middle of July, so it was probably 80, 90 degrees, and and that continued on. There's stories of when I was maybe 2 going out there again, and they only had 9 or 10 guys. They'd run out and play defense, and they'd put me in the car with the window down, and I'd stand on the seat and look out with the window open, and then they'd come in and hit, and they'd let me out and let me sit on the bench until they had to go to the field, and they'd lock me in the car again. Yep. And so I've grown up around a ball field my entire life, and then but great people, members of the community and Levant Wesleyan Church for a long time, and just as when I became a parent and was married, it was they were 2 people you really tried to emulate, and try to do a lot of the same things that they did.
What did your dad do for a living?
He was one of those guys at the back end of a baby boomer generation, and he went to school to be a math teacher. Went to SUNY Fredonia State, and then just never got hired. All the positions were hired. He said at one point it was between him and another guy, and it turned out the other guy got it because he was a 6'8" and had played college basketball, and that school was also looking for a basketball coach. So he never got in, and he worked in a factory, Jamestown Plywood Corporation, for a number of years, and then when they closed, he kind of got into the financial side of things with credit union business, and has worked at a few different credit unions. Long-standing, kind of a part-time bookkeeper position with what was the Jamestown Teachers, and is now Jamestown Area Community Credit Union, and then I think he had probably 20 plus years as the manager at the SUNY Fredonia Credit Union.
Yeah.
And then he's been basketball official and baseball umpire for years, and actually got into baseball umpiring because I was only 14 and I was going to the class and I needed a ride. So he figured I might as well stick around and take the class with. And so here he is, I don't know, however many years later, 30 plus years later, and still doing it and loving it.
So you're a Faulkner guy.
Yep.
And Faulkner High School.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And you're kind of known because of your involvement with athletics, specifically your umpiring, but that's not a normal thing for a kid to gravitate towards.
No, I went to Levant Christian School actually to start with. From essentially kindergarten all the way up through my junior year, and I graduated from Faulkner in '95. I only went there for 1 year. And that was because Levant School, the student base had gotten so small, we really didn't have what we needed to field a competitive basketball team and soccer team that I had played in high school. But that being said, we never had baseball, didn't have enough kids. 1 year, when I was maybe a freshman, we had enough older guys that we put together a team, we practiced, and we scrimmaged a couple of the public schools. And we held our own. We had some solid kids, and that year. But I started umpiring Little League baseball when I was basically 12 years old. The year after I got out of Little League, and I give the credit to Chuck Youngberg, a longtime umpire, and he must have thought that I was maybe questioning all the calls that were close, that maybe were flip a coin type calls, and Dad always taught me to know the rules, and it would help you give you a little bit of a competitive edge. So he knew the rules playing, and as a coach, and he taught them to me. And when I got done, Chuck Youngberg said, you should umpire someday. You kind of know what you're talking about back here, when you talk to me as I was catching. And so the following year, I started umpiring minor league games in Falconer, which was a level below Little League. And I was 12 years old. I would ride my bike or get a ride, and they would pass the hat, and I'd get $7. And back when baseball cards were 50 cents a pack, that bought a lot of baseball cards when you did 3 or 4 games a week.
I like that.
And I did that for a couple years, and then realized I really enjoyed it. Was going to Levant. We didn't have a baseball team, and I started questioning, well, how do I do high school ball or other summer league ball or actual little league games? And I took the baseball and the softball umpires course at the time, and started umpiring high school games as a freshman in high school. And I was only doing JV games at the time. But it was pretty unique. My first 2 games were with Chief Catania, and at Frewsburg High School. I think it was snowing the first game, but I'm helping Chief get his gear on in the parking lot after he picked me up at my house because I'm still 14 and can't drive. And that's the way it was for the first 2 years. I would have my partners would either pick me up from Levant School and drive me to wherever, or my mom or my grandfather would drive me somewhere and sit in the parking lot, or I would work it out where I would get dropped off, and then I would catch a ride home with whoever I was working on, working with, and that was the way I kind of got started.
Name some names of some of the people you work with. Did you work with Lyle Parker?
Oh, Lyle Parker, Parky and I, and I knew Parky way back, because he was a Levant Wesleyan Church member.
That's right.
And so I had known him as a kid, growing up, and always used to, ask him baseball questions. And I can still remember him, in the foyer at the Levant Church teaching me, the rules of, how to pitch off the mound, and from a stretch position. Even though he was a lefty, he's teaching me, about what's a balk and what's not a balk and how do you pick off. And then I got to umpire with him, right? And, pass out candy, as he used to do. And, but Jack Woodard, Shoeman, Tony Franchina, Larry Rogers, all the guys that are essentially the legends, that did it for a long time. At one point in time, I got to work with almost all of them, and I think the only other person that was as young as me, I believe, Greg Moran, Fnork was like 13 when he got started, and so it's kind of neat, and then to be able to pass it along to people later on, and younger guys like J.J. Belinsky and Brad Barmore and some other guys that kind of came up through and started when they were young, and some tried to make a career out of it, and some just chose to stay local with it.
So, but at some point you decided to graduate from high school that maybe this could be more fun.
Yeah, so my grandfather, my dad's dad, Hubie Lindquist, was a bricklayer, and he also was subscribes to the Sporting News back when it came in the big giant, fold out, paper, and in the back of the Sporting News all the time was like 2 pages of ads, and 1 or 2 of those ads was the umpire schools, and so Brinkman Fremming Umpire School used to put an ad in there, and Harry Wendelstedt put an ad in there. And then the third school was Jim Evans Umpire Academy. But I remember growing up and seeing those, as I'm 12, 13, 14. And I actually wrote to both academies or both schools at some point in time, and I remember getting a letter back from one of the instructors, and it may have actually been, I may have gotten a letter back from Joe Brinkman. It's in a box somewhere at the house, that basically saying, yep, you're 14 or 15 years old, you can come to us when you're 18, and we'd love to have you. And that's what I did. I kept my eye on it, and when I graduated high school in 1995, and guys were planning on to go to JCC or go in the military or head off to college, some guys were, going to play baseball or basketball somewhere at a college, and I said, I want to go to umpire school, and so I took, essentially a year off of college, just worked, and then in January of '96, I went to umpire school.
Yeah. So how does it work? I mean, I read the same ads. It was a curiosity as to how they work. How does it work?
Yeah. So, back then, and it's changed now. With Major League Baseball kind of taking over minor league baseball, and everything run through the MLB office. But back then, it was, you had these 3 different schools you could choose from. They were all right around $3,000 or so to attend. It was a 5-week program, and you were there. We usually with somewhere between 100 and 150 other hopefuls, men, women, young and old, in all different shapes and sizes, and they essentially were looking for the, we'll say, 18 to 28-year-old, and that was young enough, athletic enough, you could go put 10 years in the minor leagues and then put another 20 in the big leagues, right? And they're not going to hire a 48-year-old even if he's a great umpire, because there's just not the room to advance age-wise. But you went to school for it basically was 5 or 6 days a week, depending on the school. You're in the classroom learning rules. You're out on the field doing game situations or potentially like some live play or scrimmage things. And the instructors were the big league instructors whose name was behind the school, and minor league and the other instructors were minor league umpires who that was their kind of part-time job. They'd make a couple thousand extra dollars to go down there and teach and for a couple of for a month or month and a half. And very likely, as I found out on the back end, most of those instructors probably showed up hungover the next day, and because it was a good time for them just to get away for 5 weeks. And but it was intense, and I will say I went to Brinkman Fleming in '96, and it was a much more relaxed environment. The way that they ran the school, and I was 18 and really didn't know what I was doing at the time. First time away from home, drove to Florida myself to go, and but then when I went back again a couple years later to Jim Evans, his was called the Academy, and it was run much more like an academy or like a military style in a way, and just very regimented. He had a little bit of a military background, if I do recall, and and that was very proper style of lessons, but they were both great experiences, and I got to spend some time in Cape Cod umpiring in between the 2 of those schools, and and then eventually, after the second time I went to school, was able to land a career.
How does that work? You got is there a certificate, or is it just sort of a letter of recommendation from the school that you attended? You successfully went through 5 weeks, and do they help you place you?
They do, yeah. So what happens, so after the first experience, go around in January of '96 with Brinkman Fleming, they basically took, they called in the 100 people into the room at the end, and they say, all right, here's our list. We're going to send 10 of you to PBUC, Professional Baseball Umpire Corporation, which was an additional week-long program run by minor league baseball, and we're going to put 5 of you on the reserve list. And I got put on the reserve list, and then what ended up happening from there was I got a phone call from Ed Lawrence, who was the head of minor league baseball, PBUC at the time, and he offered me a position to go to Cape Cod and umpire for the summer. And again, here I'm 18 years old. I don't even know what the Cape Cod League is at the time. And he goes, oh, it's the best college baseball league in the nation. Well, it is, and a great experience. But what happens is, I talked about that PBUC invite. Well, each of the 3 schools got to take and send 10 to 15 guys to PBUC for the additional training program, And the number they got to send was based on maybe the number of students at the school, and how what was their level, as well as how many jobs were open in the minor leagues. And you got big league guys that retire, minor league guys move up. Not very often, not a whole lot of turnover there, but there's turnover in the minor leagues, and they had a retention policy that, depending on what level of ball you were at, you either got 2 or 3 years, and if you didn't move up, they sent you packing. And then some guys quit, right? It's a long haul, long road away from home, living out of a suitcase in cheap motels, and fast food and ballpark hot dogs, and some guys just I got a family at home. Some guys said, I'm not making any money, I'm losing money. Some guys got into trouble with the law or whatever it might be, and so if they had 26 spots available, and they're going to send however many guys to P-Buck, and P-Buck's going to hire 26 out of the 30 or 40 that get sent there. And if you don't get hired, then you get put on a reserve list and be ready for a phone call, mid-season, because there's injuries and people quit and get moved up and things like that. So.
And most of this, I don't want to say entry level, but it probably is it 2 people that do a game?
Yep. Yeah. So if you go back to like the New York Penn League days, right, and there was 2 umpires, and all of your A ball, your rookie leagues, your short season A, long season A, all those A ball leagues were essentially 2-man crews, 2-person crews. When you got to Double A, it became a 3-man crew. And then AAA, has had 3-man and 4-man crews in the past. I think they've all gone to, for most part, 3-man now. And but you essentially get told, hey Ben, all right, you and Greg are going to be partners this year. You in the low levels at that point in time, you signed up to be a driver or a rider. That was the tag. Did you have a reliable mode of transportation, or you did not? And I always liked to try to be the driver, and I had a decent car, so I'd sign up as the driver. And when you got to, and then they hand you your schedule, and they go, good luck, and that's that. And there were no GPSs, or MapQuest wasn't a thing, and you made sure you had an atlas and some maps, and you figured out how to get from point A to point B, and that might be driving from, Asheville, North Carolina to, they called Delmarva, Maryland, 8, 9, 10-hour drive after a Sunday evening game, and you got to, drive through the night, or, wake up early in the morning and go the next day, because you got a ball game the next day and you got to be there.
Within the league itself, is there sort of the head umpire of the league, or was there kind of an umpire in charge of sort of many leagues?
No, I mean, who we reported to would have been the league president.
Okay.
So, like New York Penn League was Ben Julian, I think, at one point in time, and I'm trying to think of some names. The league presidents always sign the baseballs, right? And so, in the Gulf Coast League, it was Bill Saffel, or Tom Saffel, I forget now, right? It's been a while. And I'll be a lot of times the league presidents were lawyers, or at one point in time, and that was either usually a side gig. Sometimes it was they're retired and that's their gig now, and but John Henry Moss in the South Atlantic League. Bill McCatherine or Joe McCatherine. There we go. I'm getting my Bills and my Joes mixed up, right? Joe McCatherine was the Eastern League. They're all lawyers, at one point in time. And that's who you reported to. They would hold the league meeting with all the umpires. They would lay down the laws and the rules, and some guys would tell you, go out there and umpire and do what you got to do. Some guys would tell you, keep fans aren't there to see you; they're there to see the players. Keep them in the game. Don't throw people out. And some of them were very involved, and some of them you never heard from or saw from, for the rest of the year after they handed you the schedule. So
you variously Cape Cod, and then where'd you go from there?
So I was Cape Cod the entire summer of 1996. And then I went back again in 98 for a few weeks before I went to umpire school the second time. And because I didn't get a job in 96, they sent me to Cape Cod, went to JCC for a couple of years, got my 2-year degree, and went back to the Cape for like 3 weeks, and then back to umpire school. And then when I got hired, I started out in the Gulf Coast League in 1999. And that was my first year in pro ball, what they call a complex league now. And I was between St. Lucie and Lakeland, Vero Beach, all those spring training sites, and you're doing ball games at noon every day on a back cloverleaf field with maybe 6 fans, and that's the mom and the girlfriend and the sister, and dad that are there for the week. And more than 50% of the ball players at that level are not speaking English, and they're Latin American, and I wish now I would have paid more attention in Spanish class, or had a little more desire to learn the language and been able to communicate in some ways.
These are all in the minor league complexes.
It's all the minor league complexes. Yep. And so Gulf Coast League for a year in '99, and then I was going to come to the New York Penn League in 2000, and but that was the year after the major league umpires strike,
wow,
and where they released 25 umpires and then brought back 21 of them, or hired like 21 guys, whatever it was. So there was huge movement in the minor leagues, which left gaps. So I skipped the New York Penn League and went straight to the South Atlantic League, which was long season low A. Spent a year there, and then in 2001 I was in the Florida State League for the summer. And then in 2002 I got promoted to Double A, to the Southern League, and then took a lateral transfer in 2003 to the Eastern League Double A, and spent my last 2 years in pro ball in the Eastern League.
And during that time, you had a chance when you were umpiring a game at Trenton, a guy named Jeter.
Yep.
You want to talk about that? Not everybody has that experience.
Yeah, that was back in the height of Yankees powerhouse that they were going through, and kind of the Jeter heyday. And we were in what happens is big leaguers get injured, and they do a rehab assignment in the minor leagues. And so we had guys in the past. We had Steve Avery and Kevin Brown and all Adrian Beltre before he was Adrian Beltre, and other guys and you had big league managers that were, or minor league managers that are former big league guys. One of my first days that I walked out on the field, I met George Brett. It was a Royals hitting coach at Baseball City, Haines City, Florida, and so it was always kind of neat to run into guys like that. But with Jeter, they announced he was coming, early in the day, but we got a call at the hotel from the GM saying, "Hey guys, you need to get to the park a little bit earlier than normal tonight. They're about ready to announce that Derek Jeter's going to be here for the next few days on rehab, and we're as soon as that news breaks, we're expecting people to flock to buy tickets." And they were right. That ballpark that held probably 6,700 people probably had about 9,000 people in it that night. And "Marry Me, Derek Jeter" signs, but it was just a really awesome environment to be a part of. And we got a visit afterwards from photographer Dave Schofield, who actually was a Canisius grad. Yep, and spent some time taking photographs of the Buffalo Braves, was at the NBA team back in the day, and Sabres and different things. And he was the photographer for Trenton Thunder and lived in that area, and so he photographed that entire week. And he came down along with the GM after the first game and said, "Hey, tomorrow the Yes Network is going to be here, and they're going to film and broadcast the game. And now that was in the early days of the Yes Network, and then to my knowledge, it was the first minor league game, first like non-Yankee baseball game that they had broadcast, and lo and behold, it was me who had the plate assignment that night. So that was pretty cool, and to be, 2003 was the year, and to be on the Yes Network and do a ball game, and Derek was there, and he sent autographed baseballs over to the locker room, and was a gentleman on the field, and talked to us, and it was nice. It was cool.
Where was your head at? I mean, I realize you try to be dispassionate.
Mm-hmm.
You're an umpire. You're taught that, Joe Brinkman, it's a game.
Yeah.
It ain't a game when Derek Jeter's now batting.
Yeah.
Derek Jeter.
Yeah, and a guy growing up, a Yankees fan, when you're in that position, there's no allegiances to teams. You got to make sure that and I'll be honest, in the world of baseball, it's kind of like the Kansas City Chiefs now, and everybody's kind of tired of the Chiefs, right? Like they were tired of the Patriots a few years ago. At that point in time, they were tired of the Yankees, and there was the baseball rules and the Yankee rules, and so you definitely didn't talk about the fact that you were a Yankees fan, and you maybe watched them when you went back home still and paid attention to them. But yeah, I had other names, but nobody was active and that big at that time. Like he was the MLB's shining star, and there he was in Trenton, New Jersey, and causing all kinds of commotion. And but again, it's still a baseball game, and you still gotta call strikes and balls and do it the right way. And you don't want to grab that slider in the dirt and ring Jeter up. You're hoping that you don't get a 2-strike count and they throw a cutter low, and you got to decide whether you're ringing him up or and ruining his at bat as he's trying to rehab. And then you got your inside guys going, hey, I'll give you $1 if you do this, right? And that's just your inner crew. That doesn't happen too much in real games, but back in spring training or some exhibition games and things like that, we would you got a big little guy, grab a strike on that, and we would have some fun with that once in a while. And it was neat because usually the guys knew it.
Yeah. And so, did your parents, did they all know in advance? Was there local interest in the Yes Network?
There was. So actually, the timing of it was good enough that when we got the news the night before, I called my dad and said, "Hey, Dad, we just found out the Yes Network's going to be in town tomorrow." So he actually called probably Riggs or Kinberg or somebody at the Post-Journal and said, "Hey, I just talked to Ben. This is what's going on. The game's going to be on TV." So there was actually a Post-Journal, little blip in the sports section, that the game was going to be on and I was going to be umpiring home plate. And so I got a call pregame. I had bartended at the Cherry Lounge the year prior, and I think it was Tom Constantine, and Tom had called and said, "Hey, just letting you know, we got all the TVs on in the bar or on the Yes Network tonight. We're watching you. Don't screw up."
How neat is that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fabulous. So, just before we kind of go to your next level of your life, did you find that as you were fairly young, and maybe in a league, as you got up and higher in the league, you guys are maybe a little bit older, did they try to take advantage of the situation?
No, I mean, as far as like my age and umpiring, I was the same age as everybody else, and I got in when I was 21. And most guys on my crew were a couple years older than me. In fact, my last couple years, I had guys that were a couple years younger than me. Right. So, I can remember Brian Butterfield. He was the manager of the Tampa Yankees at the time in the Florida State League. Just talking about me and my partner that summer, Peter Durfee, who's from Chico, California. We were both 6'2", 6'3", a couple 100 pounds, good-sized guys, And we walked out to the plate meeting, and Brian's our size, and he looks us both in the eye. He's like, "Man, it's good to see a couple of big strapping young men out here." He goes, "We got some guys in this crew I can eat peanuts off the top of their head." And because we had a couple of guys who were probably about 5'4", 5'6", 5'7",
Yeah.
and then I worked with one, a couple of them the following year, or a couple years later in Double A, and it was me at 6'3" with a 5'5" and a 5'7" guy on either side of me.
Yeah. No doubt. Were there? Did you have any players which really? I know you don't see them that often, but one or two that maybe just kind of got to you. You knew you were playing, and they were on the other side there. That he's coming.
Yeah, there definitely were players that you're like, oh man, we got these guys, and that guy's a pain. He's gonna argue and complain all the time, and do any of them really stick out that I had horrible times with? I'll say no. I remember in the Southern League in '02. I think it was Bobby Dickerson was his name. He was he's like a roving. He's a good infield coach, I think, now with some of the teams. But he was the manager for the Double A Cubs at the time in West Tennessee, and he was a royal pain to every umpire in the league. Had been thrown out multiple times. It was just like, what's Bobby gonna do tonight type thing. Well, somehow, some way, we never had West Tennessee on the road all year, and we were only scheduled to go there one time. And we went there the one time. He was suspended for the 3 games we were there. So I never even met the guy. I avoided the biggest headache. All that reputation. I never even had to work. He was suspended. And, but I don't think. I mean, I wasn't a red ass as you would say, and didn't. I tried to keep guys in games, and I'd like to say that I didn't create situations because I got more calls right than some others, and maybe knew how to diffuse a situation instead of escalating it and looking for trouble. But I don't think there was ever a player or a manager that I ejected more than once in my career.
Is that something you're taught? Is this a Brinkman? There's a Brinkman technique, so the guy comes storming out, and he's running towards you based on a call at second base or whatever. You engage and then walk away. Is it, or do you engage until everything just?
Yeah, it
when does it end?
Yeah, depending on the situation and where, if you're in the middle of the infield or around home plate, get to grass so they can't kick dirt on you. It's not as dramatic when they kick grass on you as opposed to dirt. You try to calm people down, right? You might stick your chest out a little bit, make sure you don't touch them, and because if they touch you, you're pointing at it and letting them know that's a bump, type of a thing. But you let them have their say. You're trying to get them to calm down. They stop yelling, talk to me. Once they can yell a lot, and if they don't make it personal, you're probably not throwing them out. But as soon as they say you, and followed by a 4-letter word, then they're probably going to take a shower early that night. And but yeah, it's one of they would simulate those things at umpire school. And I think that was the most fun the instructors used to have was, role reversal. Instead of them getting yelled at, they would go out and, it could be the most routine play in the world, and they would come out and start to argue. And, sometimes in umpire school, you're trying not to laugh, but when they're swearing at you and, it's real, role play type, you learn real quick how to handle a situation and diffuse it and not say the wrong thing. And I can still remember, when I went to Evans and we were doing a situational thing, and somebody asked where the pitch was, and I said, "Oh, that's high." And then next thing Scott Higgins, he was the Double A umpire at the time, instructor. And I said, "That's high." He goes, "You're high." And then next thing the whole place is going nuts, and then I had an ejection because I said, "You're high," instead of, I said, "That's high," instead of "That's up." So it's all language, right? And using the right verbiage, at the right time. And, you never tell somebody, "That's it, I don't want to hear another word." right? Because then in role play of umpire school or even big, in games, they would go word, and they would say, word, and then what? Now you're going to eject them because they're, being silly like that. But that's the way it goes. So you just learn what to say.
Is there a time or two when you said, "You're right, I missed it"?
Yeah, there probably was, and where sometimes maybe hey, maybe you didn't say I missed it, but hey, I didn't see it as well as I could have. I didn't have a great angle. I didn't have doing the best I can out here. There's only two of us. There's certainly situations where two guys covering a great big field, a slide back into a bag where you're looking at the backside of a runner, and the tag's going down in front. That's a really hard, situation. You can't see that. When you're in the middle of the infield and you're, trying to, call even like a pickoff at first base, back into the bag, or you're in the middle of the infield and there's a steal play into third, where your position is, it's so deep, towards second base so that you don't get hit by a line drive and get your head taken off. But that also is a horrible angle to try to make that call, and things happen so fast, you can only take like one step, and try to get a little bit of an angle in there, and a lot of times you're guessing, on really, really close stuff.
Then a time comes where you finish, I guess the story goes that you're ready to go what turned out to be your last year, and something medically happened, and you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so, I was, my wife, Jennifer, and her and I had been dating for a little while, and she had kind of said, hey, if we're thinking about getting married, before you propose to me, I want you to go get a physical. I'm like, why? And go to the doctor, I have a physical. I'm like, I had one like 5 years ago when I got into baseball. I might be 20 pounds, heavier than I used to be then, but I still run around on a field with professional athletes all day. I'm okay. She goes, good. Then go to the doctor and let the doctor tell you that. So I ended up, I said, all right, well, find me a doctor and I'll go. So she books an appointment with Dr. Manier, who was her brother's doctor. And I went to see Dr. Manier and, get my physical. And, he has me pull my pants down and gives me a little check and tells me to cough and says, hey, I'm going to send you for an ultrasound. And one of your testicles is much larger than the other. Did you notice that? And oh, yeah, I guess. Hadn't thought anything of it. And do they hurt? Nope. Okay, well, we'll get an ultrasound. So I went in for an ultrasound, and lo and behold, they found a mass or a lump on the smaller of the two testicles. Not even the larger one that I think they thought was the problem. And they gave me an antibiotic for 28 days, 21 days, 14 days, whatever it was, and said if this is a cyst, it'll shrink in size. And I went back, say 14 days later, and it was the mass was the exact same size. So they said, we're going to keep an eye on it. If you have any issues, get a hold of us. We'll send you for an ultrasound wherever you're at in the country at the time. But otherwise, we want to see you as soon as you get back home. So I booked an appointment for middle of September when I knew I would be home. 6 months later, and I worked my entire year in my summer, didn't have any issues. Went back in September for another ultrasound, and the mass had tripled in size. It had gone from like the size of a frozen pea to like the size of a marble. And they said, we got to take this out. And so we had surgery, and they removed the left testicle and did a biopsy on it and found it to be cancerous. And then we did basically 15 days of radiation therapy. I did a little gave Cleveland Clinic a family insurance policy, sperm banking as I called it, right? And thankfully, really nothing more came of it. And here I am, 20 plus years later, and testicular cancer survivor, proud father of 2 children, without having to take out that family insurance policy that I left at the Cleveland Clinic, and 2 naturally born children. and then kind of playfully started a little foundation out of it years later, and raise awareness about testicular cancer and help support people that are in treatment.
And it's called?
The One Ball Foundation.
And is that a national?
I mean, we're a registered 501c3. We had some early plans of taking it national, much like the Gus Macker did with basketball, and we, it had gone down that road a couple of times, and started to gain some traction, and then something would pop up, and then the last time we really got excited about it was February and March of 2000. And then we all know what happened in March of 2000, and it completely shut down anything we were doing. We were getting ready to go into the local high schools. I had a couple of community colleges and four-year colleges, kind of on the hook that we were going to go and run tournaments at. And then, COVID shut all those plans down. We didn't get to even have a tournament that summer. And, thankfully we've been able to pick it back up. But since then, my personal and professional life has, gotten much busier, and it's just been impossible to try to, salvage or get that type of traction going again. Because unfortunately, I just don't have the time to put into the making it a national type of an organization. But it has national reach. I will tell you, I get requests from our Facebook page on a weekly basis from all over the country for funds, for people looking for assistance. Unfortunately, we don't have that much money to go around, or I could give out tens of thousands of dollars a year, and but we limit our local pool of people that we will give to about 150-mile radius of our area. Cleveland to Pittsburgh to Syracuse, and kind of that regional area. And if someone reaches out and is looking for some support and some help, we're there to have a conversation and help them emotionally, but maybe help them make a rent check, as well, because they're out of work for a while.
And you are known for annually putting a one-ball softball tournament,
Yep.
which is one ball,
Yep.
it's either striker ball and
Yeah. And it's a wiffle ball tournament, and we did it down at the town park in Frewsburg for a number of years. The last, probably
Is it a wiffle ball?
it's wiffle ball. Yep. And post COVID, we've been doing it at the War Vets, and on their softball field, and we have anywhere from 16 to 20 teams generally that partake. You play a 4-inning, 3 or a 4-inning game. It's 4 balls and 3 strikes and 3 outs per inning, but it's ghost runners. It's based on where you hit the ball, like kind of real wiffle ball rules. And you go to our website and look it up, and the rules are all there, and it's a great time. And it's kind of we always do it the Saturday after Father's Day, so it's usually like the third weekend in June, third Saturday in June, and it's a riot. And it's a great way to start the summer off. And then we do a golf tournament, and we call it the One Ball Stack Your Balls Golf Scramble. It's a little different rules on the golf tournament, and we do that in usually the second Saturday in September, the second or third Saturday. So it's kind of beginning of the summer and end of the summer, bookend with a couple of one-ball events. And we'll generally raise about $10,000 over the course of the year, and be able to support people in treatment, and really do a lot of promotional stuff. Getting the word out to things in the community that the younger folks are around. The Babe Ruth World Series, we always do a buyout. We'll probably do some stuff for the Tarp Skunks this summer. We've had a banner for the last few years at the Ice Arena. For years, I would get calls from folks who went to go watch a G-rated movie with their children, and then me and others would come on the screen talking about testicles before the movie. So it was always a fun little phone call and conversation that parents had with their kids. Dad, what are they talking about? And but we're able to do that, and it's an awareness program,
Sure.
right? Just as it is helping people, because testicular cancer is the most prevalent form of cancer in males age 15 to 35. It's a young man's disease. And, try to get the message out there that if you have an issue, you have a question, not everybody has a male role model in their life that they feel comfortable talking to about it, or even anyone in their life that they would feel comfortable talking about a situation. And I want them to know that they can come to me if they want to. I've been through it. I've lived it, and so if there's any issue, and it's beatable. It's 98 to 99% cure rate if detected early. So it's not as prevalent as breast cancer and some of the other forms of cancer, but it's the survival rate is much higher.
You're a tremendous spokesperson for it, and it is an awareness program. And is there a website?
Yep, at oneball4tc.com. So it's the number 1 and the number 4, oneball4tc.com.
That's terrific. And by the way, I'm delighted you'll be doing probably something at the Tarpskunks because you have more than a casual interest this year.
I do, yeah. A young man by the name of Branston Lindquist, who happens to be my son and a senior in high school, and he'll be graduating this year. And before he heads off to the University of Toledo in the fall to play baseball, he's going to play for the Tarpskunks. And it's something he's kind of had in the back of his mind for years since it became a collegiate league. And things have fallen into place. And he got an invite and asked to play, and he gladly accepted that invite.
And though you may not be able to see it, maybe that's his card. And if you ask really nicely of Ben, you may get one. There aren't a lot of those available.
No, they're limited edition rookie card. He had some spread out on the counter a while ago and was signing them. So he's been passing them out to family and friends, and gave some to my dad, who's been handing them out to friends. I've had talked to a few of my clients that are his friends, and I got Branson's autographed card. So
there's always the first. May there be many more.
Yep.
You were coming here today. Is there a question you thought I would ask that I haven't, Ben?
I don't know. I don't think so. And I've done these interviews a few times, and you've covered most of the bases. No pun intended. And but it's it's been a good run, right? Like I really enjoyed my road in baseball. The story to get there. The connections that I've made. The people that I've met, and I met up with a buddy in Buffalo a few weeks ago, and who was in town for a hockey tournament from Michigan with his son, and when we got to chatting about stuff and memories and stirring up dust like that. But then there's also like the regrets, and it's like I don't have any regrets over chasing that dream for 6 years, and you kind of putting an adult life and a real salary on on hold because we didn't make a lot of money, but I was doing what I love to do and chasing a dream, just like a guy trying to make it to the big leagues as a baseball player. The chances are slim and the money's not good, but you don't know unless you try, right? And the one regret I have is that I didn't keep a journal, right? Like the day-to-day. The things I saw, the things we did, to go back and read something like I could write a book. Like I'm not sure anybody has kept a journal like that and then gone. Neil Taylor is an umpire who wrote a few books, but it wasn't in the journal form. Just kind of some random stories and and things like that. But life as a minor league umpire is unique. Let's put it that way. You see a lot of things you'd like to remember, a lot of things you go, oh my God, I hope that never happens again. Right. And it was, and then it really played into a little bit of my career afterwards, and everything that I've done is, kind of been in steps, and one experience has led to the next, which led to the next, and given me perspective on a lot of things in life. So.
And now you're at a place called Lawley Insurance.
Correct. Lolly Insurance, and I've been doing helping people with their Medicare and individual health insurance for, I don't know, 8+, almost going on 9 years. And people talk about it being so confusing, and it's hard to understand. And again, this is where I say, listen, from going back to my dad being an education, major, to me thinking about I wanted to do the same thing. And then, when I got out of baseball, I ended up at JCC in the athletic department for a number of years. I was doing their, NJCAA, like academic eligibility, and very, the rules in the book and the, complex, and trying to understand all that. And and I've always been involved in the community and, my foundation and some boards that I sit on in community service. And this job that I have now, it's all that wrapped into one. And it's not sales, and people told me I should be in sales because I can talk. Well, I work on a commission basis, but I'm not selling anything. I'm helping people get enrolled into a plan that they need, helping them make sense of it by educating them, breaking it down to make sense so they can figure out what it is that's going to work best for them, and then I get them enrolled. So it's kind of community service, education, and sales all wrapped into one, and I love it, and it's a good spot to be.
Well, I recommend everybody stop by Lolly's BWB building and look at his exhibit. It's quite remarkable. And before we leave, he's going to sign a picture that I have here of Pete with Derek Jeter. So thanks so much, Ben.
Thanks for having me, Greg. Appreciate it.